Now, on the other hand, of course, the scale of the military budget, it has often been alleged, and not without reason, has been a very important factor in undermining every other state service in Pakistan because of its grossly disproportionate share of the state budget. Of course, it might be said from that point of view that as long as a relationship of hostility remains between India and Pakistan, the Pakistanis, from their point of view, don't have much choice. And India's military budget is now 8 times that of Pakistan, even 9 times, I think, by now. So, in those circumstances, they feel at least that they have to spend a good deal. But undoubtedly, the military budget is sapping the state's ability to do things in other areas. I've been accused of being too pro-military. I think the answer would be more. It's not so much I'm pro-military, it's that I am very sceptical about the Pakistani political classes, who, by the way, actually run the country, in effect, whether a civilian or a military government is in power. The fundamental thing about Pakistan is whether it's a civilian or a military government, the state is weak and compared to forces in society. The other thing, though, when it comes to the military budget, is I had occasion, for bizarre reasons of my own, recently to read some middle to late Roman history. I don't know if any of you recall the advice that the Roman Emperor Septimius Severus, on his deathbed, gave to his son Caracalla. Basically, the only thing you must do, whatever else you do or don't do, remember to pay the soldiers. The Pakistani military, the morale of the ordinary soldiers and much of the officer corps has come under intense strain in recent years. They hate a lot of what they're doing. They detest the alliance with the United States. They detest the humiliations that this has brought them. On the other hand, they do like their pay. They do like the benefits that they get from military service, which of course are enormous compared to anybody else in the Pakistani state service, indeed almost anyone else in the whole of Pakistani society. And, well, along the lines of the emperor's advice, the knowledge that if they mutiny, the state will collapse, and then all these nice benefits will go out of the window, does have an effect in keeping them loyal and disciplined. Something which is, unfortunately, very much in our interests at the moment, since if the Pakistani army did mutiny, well, then the Pakistani state would go down the tubes very, very quickly with its nuclear weapons. But long before you get to nuclear weapons, of course, you have an army of 500,000 men beginning to just leak anti-aircraft missiles, munitions, engineers, and what have you. I have to say, on the line of not so much being pro-military as having had to a certain degree, my fill of politicians, and it must be said to a degree journalists in Pakistan as well, I get a little tired of going to liberal dinners and lunches with politicians in Pakistan, and hearing again and again about how it's the military budget that's ruining the country. The main point about the Pakistani state's lack of money is that Pakistan has the lowest rates of revenue collection in South Asia. Less than 10%, 9.7 I think it was, something like that. Sri Lanka has more than 13%, I can't remember Bangladesh. India has more than 17%. The thing that really cripples the Pakistani state is that they can't raise its central thing, state weakness throughout history. They can't raise the revenue in the first place. Why not? Well, it's partly a chicken and egg thing. Their own state servants are appallingly paid, therefore they're corrupt. So a lot of revenue that could be raised, the pattern is simply that the state tax collectors are corrupted. There is another fact, however, which is perfectly legal, which is that the political representatives of the Pakistani elite in parliament simply block any legal attempt to impose higher taxes on them. as I said recently, there was another major country that that reminded me of, but I couldn't remember where it was. Not one of the Americans got the joke. I mean, the point is that elites throughout history and throughout the world try to evade taxes. Some of them, do it by illegal means, as in Pakistan. Others do it by perfectly legal means. The consequence, in the end, is the same. The state doesn't have the revenues it needs. In consequence, of course, you get into, as far as the mass of the population is concerned, a vicious circle or chicken and egg situation, or vicious chicken, or something of the sort, whereby the people don't see any results from the state in return for their taxes, therefore see no reason to pay those taxes. They feel that whatever taxes they pay are either diverted to the army or simply stolen, so they have no will to pay taxes, and the state can't force them to pay taxes, so it goes on and on and on. And as a result, while, as I say, Pakistan is more resilient than it looks, it's also resilient. It doesn't have the capacity, even to the extent that India does, to do a whole set of things that states need to do if they're going to lay the basis for serious economic growth and social progress, most notably, of course, in the field of education and of infrastructure. The other factor in the resilience of Pakistan, oddly enough, is Islam, from 2 points of view. We have got into this thing of seeing Islam, consciously or unconsciously as a threat. Religion in Pakistan, as in so much of the rest of the world, is in fact a profoundly ambiguous force from this point of view, for 2 reasons. The first is that while Pakistan has these appallingly low rates of revenue collection and of state service, it does actually have very high rates of charitable giving, as a result, of course, of religious impulse to do this, and it must be said, the fact that you then get tax breaks from it. Although that shouldn't be overestimated, because, of course, you weren't going to pay taxes anyway. And I have observed myself that, as with the distribution of, charity, well, it's all much part of the same thing, as we know. Well, of course not from ourselves, God forbid, but from many societies. Charitable giving is also very much a way of showing your generosity, your grandeur, of establishing yourself, as a good person in society. But charitable giving in Pakistan really does have an effect in many areas in softening the really harsh economic edges of the Pakistani economy, and thereby perhaps also contributing to this relatively low Gini rate. You see the most appalling, of course, injustices, appalling poverty in Pakistan. I have to say, you don't, on the whole, see the considerable areas of absolute immiseration that you see in India, for example. Pakistan, in Indian terms, I've always said, is somewhere in the middle. It's obviously nowhere near, Bangalore and places at the top. It's also still a fair way away from Bihar, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, places like that. The other way in which religion is a profoundly ambiguous force in Pakistan is that Pakistan is deeply divided religiously. It's united, alas, on certain things, as we saw, let's say the religious people, most of them, not all, are united on certain things, as we saw with their very widespread support for the assassination of the Liberal governor of Punjab earlier this year, something that had the support of most of the different religious traditions in Pakistan. From every other point of view, though, Pakistan is deeply divided between different religious schools, different traditions, different sects. This was something that General Zia discovered in the 1980s when he set out to try to turn Pakistan into a much more rigorous Islamic State, with the Sharia as the actual. What he discovered, of course, was that Pakistanis couldn't agree on what the correct version of the Sharia actually is, not just because of the Sunni-Shia divide, but because of divisions within the Sunni schools themselves. The Pakistani Taliban is now engaged in a battle not just with the Pakistani state, but also with the parts of it who've now been sort of brought on board, began actually not as anti-state terrorists and not as anti-Western terrorists, but as anti-Shia terrorists, notably the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi. Partly under the influence of the Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia, Al-Qaeda and so forth, partly as a political tactic to try to destroy the traditional elites in parts of the countryside. The Pakistani Taliban has also been launching more and more attacks on what is called in South Asia the Barelvi tradition, a tradition which is very much attached to, one should not use the word worship, they don't like it, but respect, shall we say, for local shrines and for the saints who are buried at those shrines, and the families of the saints who remain the custodians of the shrines, and who are, as one could imagine, if medieval bishops, abbots had legitimate children, are great landowners in their own right. A little anecdote. In Pakistan, these people are called peers, the descendants of saints, or if they're the actual custodians, they're called Sajjada Nasheens. When I was last in Pakistan, I had a conversation at a party with one of these peers, and I asked him whether I couldn't really claim that my male ancestors qualified, but I said to him that I did have a particularly saintly great aunt. Would this qualify me to be a peer? And he said, no, unfortunately, I wish it did, but it has to be a male descendant. It's a pity. I was really looking forward to being a hereditary saint. The interesting thing about this particular conversation is, but absolutely by no means untypical, was that by the time we got to this point in the conversation, both I and the hereditary saint had had at least 3 glasses of whiskey. In other words, from their point of view, the Taliban have a point. These people have become merged, basically, with the local aristocracy. So you have a situation in which the Taliban are really going after other groups, religious groups in Pakistani society, and in consequence those other groups are, shall we say, unlikely to support a Taliban-style revolution in Pakistan. It's not inconceivable in certain circumstances, basically if some ill-considered American action drove parts of the army into mutiny, that there could be a seizure of power at the centre by a radical Islamist group. However, for the reasons which I hope I've set out, which also, of course, include the great ethnic diversity of Pakistan, if that happened, it would not lead to an Iranian-style revolutionary state. It would lead to the disintegration of the country, because the first thing that would happen would be, first, that other areas would revolt against this, and then those other areas would begin fighting not just against the centre, but against each other. It would be a bloody mess, is what it would be. It would be Lebanon on, well, do the math, it would be Lebanon on a scale 100 times as big, perhaps. Anyway, so we have to hope it doesn't happen.